heard oral arguments for one of the most important cases in U.S. history, the case of freedom of speech for government employees, this fundamental protection of political affiliation and free speech. It's rigorous debate, rigorous questions asked from both sides. Also at core of this is not only free speech, it's battling conflicts of interest and corruption. It is a conflict of interest, a fundamental conflict of interest, when a government union boss can give campaign contributions and state-paid employees to work for a politician's campaign, then after they're elected, negotiate with them on a new union contract and set those terms. If that happened in the private sector, someone would go to jail. In government, it's standard. This is a fundamental difference between government unions and private sector unions. There is a dramatic, fundamental difference. In the private sector, there is not an issue of political activity. In government, a government union, everything a government union does is political by its very nature. It impacts taxpayers, it impacts government and politics. 100% of what a government union does is political by nature. And therefore, forced payment of dues is political speech that's forced against the choice of a government employee. That is wrong. And then when those dues can be used to pay a politician to get them elected, and then influence their decision on the type of contract terms they give, that is corrupt at its core. It is a conflict of interest. Even President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was a strong advocate for collective bargaining rights, strong advocate for unions, he was uncomfortable. He was against the power of government unions. They are fundamentally different than in the private sector. When they have unfettered power, it is contrary to the public good. It is contrary to the interests of the people of America. That's what's at stake in this case, and that's why I hope and believe that Mark Janus will prevail in a case that I originally brought as the governor of Illinois. I filed this case against Afscme in February of 2015 because I saw it as a free speech issue and a anti-corruption issue, a fight against conflict of interest. That's what's at stake, and I hope and believe we will prevail.
Governor, what would happen to unions in your state? You look at the cameras when you answer. What would happen to unions in your state if your side wins?
Government unions, and this has nothing to do with trade unions, government unions will be forced to compete to represent state workers and workers in local governments and in school districts. The workers will no longer be forced to join the union and pay any union dues. So they will have to make their case to the employees whether they should be represented by them or not.
But is there any way this will weaken the public sector unions?
It'll be up to the state employees, local government employees, and the teachers to decide whether they want to be in the union and support that union's political activity. By its very nature, everything that a government-related union does is political. It'll be up to the employees and the teachers to decide whether they want to support that or not.
Don't you make a distinction? You're not making a distinction that the union does between fees to cover the contract negotiation costs and dues. Why are you using the word dues when the legal issue is over fees?
Any payment to a government union by its very nature is political. All that government unions do, every union that impacts taxpayers, 100% of what they do is political by its very nature. It impacts government, it impacts taxpayers, it impacts government policy. So everything they do is political speech in a government union. That's why forced payment of any types of dues, any types of fees, is violation of free speech and political affiliation.
But isn't this just, you have a political agenda, you're well known, and for years just to bust the unions in Illinois.
That's not true at all. That's not true at all. I represent all the people of Illinois. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was a passionate believer in collective bargaining, a passionate believer in unions, was against government unions. They are fundamentally different than private trade sector unions. Fundamentally different. And government unions are organized against the interest of the common good. This is the issue. It's a conflict of interest. And when a government union boss can give campaign cash to get a politician elected and then sit across the table from them after they're elected and negotiate terms, that's a conflict. It's in fact a bribe. And if that happened in the private sector, someone would go to jail. But in government, we accept it as being standard.
Governor, in the
What there should not be is unfettered, forced power. Unfettered power does not work.
are you opposed to a single
Thanks very much,
bargaining
everybody.
agent? Governor.